Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for hitting that play button to listen in on another episode of the Heady Coleman Show. Today, I have my man Bobb Semple here.
Hey, what's up, man?
You got it. And you know that we, on this show, I love to help people share their story because I believe that when people share their stories, others learn from it. People are inspired by it, and we connect in a way that leads to community. And I like to say that community wins. And so I thank you for allowing me to kind of ask you some questions and hopefully get your story out there.
Super glad to be here.
So people can do those three things. So
Awesome.
now I'm just going to be honest. We just started a few seconds ago, people. We started a few seconds ago,
called himself
and
out.
I did not
Called himself out.
hit the record button. And the reason I didn't call myself out because so many people out there are like, we do stuff in such a way that we make people feel like it's perfect.
Perfection is an illusion.
Yeah, man, it's such it is. So I like to share my mishaps because I think it encourages people. Like, oh, if Hetty's messing up,
And we all want to be like Hetty.
No, not.
It's the truth. It's so true. Be like Hetty. I'm telling you, I've this man for years. Been wanting to be like him for a long time.
Share your 120-second story.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in South Louisiana.
Yep.
My parents are from two different sides of the world in that sense. My dad is from Guyana, South America. My mom is from New Orleans, Louisiana. And so where I grew up in right outside of New Orleans in a town called Hammond, Louisiana. It's about 30,000 people. I loved it a whole lot. Out of high school, I planned to join the Navy.
Yeah.
Joined the Navy. I was super excited to leave in the most violent sport in America, as I like to call it, church softball. I broke my wrist. It caused me to not be able to go to basic training. So that kind of dramatically shifted things. And so...
No, had you already signed up and everything?
Oh, I signed up. The whole nine.
So you broke your wrist, couldn't go.
And they said, hey, if you cut yourself, you can come back when you're healed. If we cut you, you can't come back. And so I cut myself in hopes that it would change. And when it didn't, 2 or 3 months later, my dad came alongside me, like many dads all across the world, and said, "All right, son, now what? What you gonna do?" And so I moved out to a little camp of a family friend and went to find myself for 3 weeks. And I don't know if I found myself, but when I got the phone call from my older brother, who graduated from Oral Roberts University here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
He said, "Hey, you should move to Oklahoma." And I said, "What's wrong with you? Why would I do that?"
Yeah.
And he said, "You should come." I said, That sounds like a terrible idea. And so 3 weeks later, I moved to Oklahoma.
He convinced you.
He was able to convince me, man. And so my mom, as I like to say, gave me one of everything I needed. So a set of silverware, a table, a blanket, a pillow, a little bit of everything, and literally packed my car down, and I haven't been back.
Wow.
So I've been back to visit, but I've made Oklahoma my home ever since. And so it's been amazing. I've been here now, it'll be 16 years this fall. When I got to Oklahoma, I started things out at Tulsa Community College.
Okay.
I had a really great experience there. I really got involved in the student government, and so I served a year as president of the Oklahoma Student Government Association, which meant I got to go and visit almost every campus in the state. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so I got to see a lot of Oklahoma and make a lot of great friends, and that included UCO, where I got my degree back in 2009 in political science. And so had an amazing experience there. Served as student body president at UCO. So when you're talking about community, that's my heart.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I like to tell people is that whenever you're new to a place, you're so open to meet anybody. Why? Because you don't have a tether to the same group of people.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just never established a single tether. So I've got that core group of people I love, but there's always opportunity to expand that circle to new people and to get to know folks. And so I'm now glad that I get to be in your circle and you get to be in mine.
Yeah, man, that's cool.
Absolutely.
So whenever you left UCO, you began to do what?
So back up, when I was 7 years old, I announced that I was going to run for president in, I think, I said I would be president in 2025. That was the plan. 2025
of the U.S.
of the United States of America.
Okay.
7 years old.
Okay.
And I was dead set on that until I was about 23 years old.
Okay.
So that whole part of my childhood and my early 20s was politics, was everything, was my primary goal. And I had a really great mentor in President Roger Webb. Towards the end of my service as student body president and right before graduation, he said, "John, what do you want to do with your life? How can I help you get there?" I said, "I want to move to DC. I want to be an intern for our congressman, and that's where I want to go." I said, "I want to go into politics." And with all the love in his heart, he looks at me and he says, "John, as great as that is, and I want you to serve in that way," he said, "is there a really good chance you're going to get elected?" I said, "Yes, you bet. You know that's right."
Yeah.
I had the big head. And he said, however, and he had some experience in this, he was the youngest at the time elected statewide official in the state of Oklahoma. I think he got in office as director of public safety when he was 27. He said, "You're going to get elected and you're going to be exhausted. And you're not going to do anything for the community anymore." He said, "Go and get a job where you can create value and come back and see something that you've built whenever you're done." And I said, "That sounds like a terrible idea," and ignored it up until that summer when I watched what happens on the floor of Congress. And I said, "You know what, if I'm going to take a vow of poverty, I want to do it for something that is lasting and matters." And so I stayed. So I started my career in the dental world, working for the Oklahoma Dental Association. A part of my job was to work with the Dental Foundation in an event called the Oklahoma Mission of Mercy, where we would do 2-day dental clinics where we were able to serve almost 2,000 people free dental care. And I had the bug, man. And I think there's a lot of detail work that I wasn't great at because I like to talk. And my boss, she didn't pay me to talk. She paid me to get things done.
Yeah.
And so I got to serve and I got to see a lot of Oklahoma and I really fell in love with it. And so that's my first job out of college that I did that about 3 years before I made my change over to where I am now, and that's the regional food bank. So.
Wow. So what are some things that you, I know you just shared, like, I'm a talker, I'm not in the details. Did you learn that even more so whenever you were part of the Dental Association?
I did. I think whenever you're a student, so much of what you're learning or understanding, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses?
Yeah.
And I hadn't realized and embraced that. You've got to lean into your strengths. However, as you're moving forward, those weaknesses or those key essential things that you got to learn are things you got to lean into that much more.
Yeah.
And especially if you want to, have that job be able to provide your greatest value. And so for me, I didn't realize being on a team with me meant that there were going to either be drop balls or my attention would be all over the place. And those are things I still struggle with to this day. But that job said, "Hey, guess what? Time to double down on those things." Why? Because you're the low man on the totem pole.
Yeah.
Time to figure it out, bro. And so, in those 3 years, I grew a whole lot. And I learned a whole lot. I'm really grateful for my experience at the Dental Association, both in learning something that I will forever take with me because of the things that it gave me, but more importantly, it helped me become a better leader, it helped me become a better follower, and it really gave me a good foundation to do what I've now done for the last 7 years, and that's being involved in the fight against hunger at the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma. So.
Now, did you come into the Regional Food Bank in the role you're currently in, or did you kind of work your way up?
So I've been in about 4 different roles since I've been there. My first one was a general kind of project manager, and that meant I was working with our agencies on some events. I was working to help establish some relationships with colleges and universities in that space. And my big project that I worked on was the Food and Resource Center model, which is a project that I probably spent the majority of my career at the food bank working on.
Okay.
And so that is kind of large-scale food distribution centers that do kind of two things, and that's one, feed the line, feed people who are needing assistance today, and work to shorten the line, be able to connect to the resources and the key essential tools that will help them for that can get back on their feet.
Okay.
And so I was a part of building 14 of those. The first 2 were done by the time I got there, but the other 12 were a big part of my job. And so that was everything from community organizing, showing up in rural Oklahoma or urban Oklahoma or suburban Oklahoma and saying, hey guys, we have a problem. It's food insecurity. You can be a part of the solution. How can we do something together and use this model to make sure that your neighbors are taken care of? And so that put me in the wildest experiences and really a lot of growth opportunities. Even with all the knowledge that our leadership had, it was being the guy to make that happen. And so I was having to tap into that detail stuff, saying, all right, we got construction management side of this. Okay, detailed relationships. You got to know who we've talked to and how and why and all that other stuff. Hey, can you communicate the vision of what we have to do at the food bank? And it was really a very quick onboarding.
Yeah.
I was jumping in the deep end. And so it was disaster relief, and it looked like really trying to finish strong in certain communities and be embracing this principle of you don't know what you don't know, and being okay with that. And so, man. So it's been an amazing 7 years to be a part of the solution and applying, as you said, with community wins. Really helping people see the real definitions of community, and then how can we drill down in community and bring all of your skill sets and talents and industries together to make sure that our neighbors eat, and then even more importantly, that them and their kids have a shot for a different tomorrow.
What have you learned to get people to say yes, essentially, to community? Meaning, like, you're saying, hey, we all got to come together to address this issue in order for us to be successful, for it not to exist. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you've done or seen that help people come on board with that?
You know, I think it's a great question. I think one of the things that I learned is that you can't be the person with all the answers. You know, I think it's a misnomer that you walk in a room and you begin a conversation and a person thinks of themselves as the expert. That expertise in whatever you're good at is only as valuable as your ability to help create either a connection or to create mutual understanding with that person you're talking to.
Yeah.
They've got to buy in. They've got to understand. As I tell my team every day, just because you throw the ball doesn't mean it gets caught. And so whenever you walk in and you've got the answers, you're throwing a ball at somebody and you just hit them in the head. You go over here, it's bouncing off the wall, and then at some moment, all of these messages, all these balls are just laying on the ground. And you're like, well, I came here to play catch. I don't know why people don't want to play catch with me. And the truth is, I think there's a degree of humility. You know, one of the things when I get nervous that I learned in community was I would downshift and was that natural tone. You know, my dad was in ministry. My dad was in politics. My dad did a lot of community work as well. So what I do, let me downshift in inspiration, and it would sound a whole lot like a used car salesman met your local minister, and I'm trying to sell you something. I'm getting you up, and it's not a conversation anymore. And so I think you've got to make it a conversation. I think you've really got to be able to make it about them. And
I'm taking notes if you don't mind.
Oh, no,
you don't mind,
man.
Man, I'm gonna take a few notes while I listen if you don't mind. Just
please,
I love that. I love that.
And kind of like I think we talked about before, a guy I saw at a conference, a Feeding America conference, Derwin Du Bois, he said, you've got to build with, not for. Whenever we are building for somebody, there's this paternalistic attitude that says, I'm going to show you how this is done. But I don't live in your community. I don't have your vantage point. I don't have your experience. And so that's a message that plays on the northeast side of Oklahoma City in a predominantly black neighborhood. That's the message that holds true and rings true in Elk City, America, in Woodward, America, in Lawton, America. Each context being able to have its own world. And so if that's the case, I cannot tell somebody how to do this. And I've done this right, and I've done it wrong.
Yeah.
And whenever we've gotten it wrong, it comes off as disingenuous, especially when it's cloaked in, I've got good intentions. Well, your good intentions can also do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And so that means I've got to do kind of 3 steps. Number 1, you got to listen, you got to learn, and then you serve. I'm listening to what you're saying.
Listen, learn, serve.
Yeah. So I'm listening to the person in front of me and listening to the things that they have to say. That I'm trying to learn what it is that is able to. I've got to understand what's happening already in this space. I got to learn from the people who are already doing the work. That I already said, we've asked that question for 20 years. How has that worked well, and how has that worked poorly? So I've got to learn what's happening, and then I can step in and start to serve. And so those are some lessons actually from a podcast that I get to be a part of with my friend Carrie Berlin. That's a step process that she's been a huge champion of, the intentional volunteer, where we talk to folks about, hey, you want to change these things in our communities, you want to be a part of that, but you got to realize you're not the center of that universe. And so these are some ways that have helped serve me well at the food bank. But I think for anybody who wants to make change in community, it's important.
Now, when you talk about the intentional volunteering, the podcast, what are some other top? And so, also, just to be clear, just because some people may be like me, when you say intentional volunteer, you're thinking of us as individuals volunteering, not as organizations going out recruiting volunteers. So talk about some of the topics that y'all discussed on there, and then maybe I can kind of jump in and ask questions for that, because I'm interested in that.
Sure.
And how can people find your podcast? What's the easiest way to do that?
So specifically on iTunes, that's the primary place that we're at, or you can go online at intentionalvolunteer.com. I think when it comes down to the intentional volunteer, like, we know that it can be overwhelming for people. If you cut on television and you watch what's happening in our world, you can get stuck and frustrated. There's that feeling as if, like, I don't understand how I can be a part of a solution that takes this feeling of powerlessness away. I don't know where to start to be able to respond. When I led our volunteer center at the food bank, where we hosted over 42,000 volunteers each year, one of the things that we would talk about is that we try to create an opportunity for people to give back or to pay it forward. We facilitate someone else's desire to pay it forward, to give back. And every nonprofit is kind of in that same business. You're creating lanes for people to take their treasure, their capital, their dollars, their resources, to take their time, their energy, their effort, to say, can you make this create good in the world? And so the intentional volunteer, we want to help people who have that feeling of stuck, I don't even know where to start, and be able to intentionally do that well. And so we try to give some just some smart hints and tips about what that looks like. As you're a podcaster, you know that trying to be able to say, how can we say all the stuff I want to say in this concise way that makes sense? I'm glad that my friend Carrie's there, because she's really good at, like, honing those things. I'm the guy who be like, let's talk about all the things. And so we ask a lot of great questions. We've got a third part of that triad, Sherry, Dr. Zimmerman. She brings the academic side of it to say, what are the studies that are happening out there? So she brings a little bit of flavor to some focus groups she's done, and we really just try to have a conversation about what does it look like, what's your why to do that. So we interview some folks that like yours, you're sitting down in the interview and you think you know this person, and then you're just like,
mind's blown.
Exactly. So I say it's a gambit. There's a lot of great stuff we talk about. So if you're ever listening, go on. You can do it on iTunes or online.
At intentionalvolunteer.com.
That's right.
Intentionalvolunteer.com. So check that out. Because Derek had told me, we have a mutual friend, Derek.
Oh, yeah.
Derek was telling me about the podcast.
I love him. He's a good dude.
Yeah, we have several mutual friends. So Greg Hawks, which Greg does a lot of work with you all at the food bank.
He does.
Talk about the work that he does and why that's important to you all.
You know, so Greg.
We're jumping all over the place. Like
Hey,
right? This is just a conversation.
Hey, this is a conversation. Like, we were just going to talk. We decided to record it and then let y'all in.
That's right. That's right.
So Greg Hawkes is, man, I've never met a man with so much energy in my life. Okay, like, so his energy and his enthusiasm is what powers his ability to help organizations and groups of people craft culture. And so probably for over 6 years, 5 or 6 years, he's worked with the food bank to really craft culture. And so Greg and I have built a friendship outside of that, which has been cool, just to be able to say, like, hey, how can I be a better communicator? Because he does it really well. How can I take my own life experiences and turn into lessons for others? He does that really, really well. And so he's been working with the food bank, doing culture crafting, doing some consulting in regards to our leadership teams and all that kind of stuff. And so he's actually going to be coming out and sharing with our staff here later this month. And so we're super excited to hear from him because he's just good at what he does, man.
That's good.
You know it.
Yeah. No, Greg and I've been friends for a long time, and I've been able to kind of watch his story over the years, and I'm thankful that I get to be a part of that and watch it, and learn from it and steal ideas and borrow ideas, whatever,
Exactly.
So it's really good. So talking about how we are connected to different people and thinking about community. How have you found that people have kind of guided you in order to, like over the years, you've heard about me, I've heard about you, but we haven't connected. Like, how has that transformed your life and made a difference in your life, just having a community of people around you?
Man, I think community is this, like, it can be this word that means everything and can mean nothing to certain.
What does it mean to you? Yeah, let's talk about it, because it is, people define it differently.
They do. I think that's such a, like, unfortunately, it can be an ugly buzzword in the sense of, like, we create community, right? And then, like, in a church space, we have community groups. This is your community. This is your tribe. Right? Then you've got community in the big sense, people you've never met before, but you have a common bond in geography or a common bond in interest or experience. When I was in college, I would talk about our community of 17,000 students that included international students from all over the world. And you're like, can you be in community with somebody you've never met? And in some ways, I would say yes. You and I have been in this community of people who are like, hey, guess what? We've got this common set of skills and common set of interests. We want to be bridge builders that bring people together. We're just two different bridges that have been different parts of the divide that's there. And so I think community looks like, to me, a sense of place, a sense of values that we share or don't share. And I say don't share. I think there are people within our community right now here in Oklahoma that feel disconnected, feel disjointed, don't agree. And I love to play the role of being like, hey, let me show you what you do have in common. You really are in community in that way. And so I think, I think that's not a great definition, but it's a feeling that you know when you get there. I think one of the things that you said in one of your podcast episodes, you were talking about, there are 10 people you invite that you want to invite to Guthrie every single month.
Every month.
So in that sense, like, you are like not just a community champion, but the sense of place specific to Guthrie. And guess what? This is not about Oklahoma. This is not about the metro area. This is about the town of Guthrie. I think they can count on you to be community to people that don't know Guthrie. And so I don't know. I think that's a big part of it. So I think for me, community is being a way to encapsulate the people I'm around, the things that I do, the place I call home, and make it meaningful for people. So.
Because the more and more I go into this thing about growing community, building community, now I'm starting to think, so if I call Guthrie, let's say if I speak specific to a city. But now we really call the city community, right? But then within that, we have these group of people who meet every Thursday at 6 o'clock at Hoboken Coffee, and they ride bikes together. which now that's community, you know, within that community. So what is it, and I think you hit this on, what is the value that connects all those people? And I think common denominator is bike riding. Yeah. But also fellowship. Yeah. And I think the big picture for me when I think about Guthrie as a community is the fellowship of the importance of understanding that we're doing life together within a zip code. Yeah. And how important it is for us to stay connected in order for all of us to win to a certain degree. Now, I may not be a part of the bike community, but I'm part of the big picture community, which is the city of Guthrie. That's right. You know, and so in the way that I try to connect us is through sharing stories. So I just heard you say part of my job is making sure that we connect. So I think sharing stories allows for us to connect. What are some other things that you've learned over the years to help connect? When you talk about running Volunteer Central, like I think we're all there because of the food aspect, right? We no longer want to see people hungry. Yeah, I would assume. Of course. What are some other ways that you've been intentional about making sure those people connect, or if you did?
Well, I think one of those things was like, so I'll give you as an example, the amount of diversity that walks in that room, and I say diversity in every sense. So for instance, we would have a day where the Atheist Association will get together, right? And on that same day, we would have an Interfaith Alliance and then some very specific evangelical church Christians all there volunteering at the same time. And there were times where I remember thinking to myself, like, there's nowhere else in Oklahoma City that's doing it like us, unless it's Netflix. Netflix brings a community like that together. The state fair, the schools, sometimes, not all the time. And fireworks on the 4th of July. You know what? Fireworks brings people together like that. Everybody looking in the sky, fireworks. And so there were these days where I would look at like the list of who's coming in today, and I would think to myself, we have a responsibility to help create an environment that is fun, that is something that people are going to remember, that they're going to walk out and know something and share. I mean, I remember we'd say, and we still the case, there are about 7 messages we want everybody to hear. Not only do we appreciate you, not only do we invite you back, we want to invite you to tell somebody else. We want you to do that in a safe way. We want to make sure that you talk to some other folks while you're here. You know, we explain all those different things. And it wasn't all about the food bank. It was about the fact that you have something in common, and that is you want your neighbors to be able to have food. You want kids to be fed. Here at the Volunteer Center, we want you to make sure that while you're here, you're walking away with more than you left while you were here. And so I think that is kind of emblematic of just my life in regards to bringing people together. You know, you and I share a passion for speaking, right? Every time I speak, no matter where it is, I get to tell them stories of people that they've never met before, oftentimes. If anything, I hope that recharacterizes or reshapes how they think about that group they've never met. That, I think, can bring that sense of community and connection, if only because there's an exposure to something they've never met. And I think that is something that those of us who are bridges, we get to play that role. I think one of the key elements of this, especially no matter what environment you're in, a bridge doesn't start until there's nothing underneath it, right? A bridge exists for the gap. That's the reason the bridge is there. Well, one of the things that I know about you, Hetty, because everybody tells you, and here on the Hetty Coleman Show, everybody knows this, you can't pigeonhole Hetty Coleman into anything. This man goes to have coffee with people who are all about cycling. He doesn't cycle, but he cares about people. Guess where he is? You can find him with the cyclists. Well, that means that you're this bridge to people who are non-cyclists because you've done the work to go into the cyclist world and say, what do we have in common? And so I think that's such a huge part of the lessons that I've learned over the years, is that I don't have to have everything in common or even the most important value to me in common in order to bridge that gap. And I think that's such an important thing for me in every environment. I feel like that's part of why I was created. And so at the food bank, I get to do that in all of those environments. Say, hey, let's talk about food insecurity. That is not fun at all. It's terrible. But you know what's really fun? Watching other people say, I've got a part to play. because you told me about the great work that's being done that I can be a part of.
Yeah.
And so I like to do that outside of the food bank when I go and talk to high school kids and say, hey, guess what? It's the activity that we do. I tell all the kids, I said, you know, in order for you to achieve the dreams and the things that you have, the unique calling that you have, you've got to be able to acknowledge something that we all have, and that's fear, right? Everybody has this fear. Now, everybody's fears are going to be different, but sometimes there's certain trends that we have, right? So I'll tell them and say, what I want you to do right now is I want you to write down what your fear is on a piece of paper. Now, this is a classroom environment, and they're rarely ever used to this, but I want you to write down on this piece of paper what your fear is. Now, I want you to take a second. Everybody takes a second. Then pause. Okay. Now, I want you to rip that up. And I want you to crumble up in a piece of crumble up in a big ball. And while you're wadding that ball up, I want you to think what was still on that piece of paper. I want you to remember it. And I want you to take all of the power out of that fear because you've now acknowledged it. And I want you to take it and I want you to throw it at me. And watch 60 or 100 kids throwing paper at me. Yeah. And then what do? I'm going to pick up those pieces of paper and I'm going to read a few of those. And I say, hey, did I read yours? Oh, wait a minute. There's a second fear that's here. Hey, did I read yours? Nope, that probably wasn't yours. Why? Because we all share that same common fear of failure, or failure, or the fear of disappointing somebody, or the fear that I'm not going to make it. Well, guess what? That fear has a little less power in our hearts and minds when we know I can still take that fear and courageously jump into everything you're supposed to do. Something as simple as fear, I think, brings people together. So for me, I like to be able to do that in any environment, in any mechanism, and then telling people those stories because it makes us feel like we're a part of something.
Yeah, that's good. That is so good.
Yeah.
So how often do you work with the high school students?
Man, probably in a year's time. This is growing, right? But probably in a year's time, I'll speak to 15 different groups or so of. It might be high school students, or it might be community colleges, it might be college students, it might be a small business, it might be just a group of people. We're together at Ignite.
Yeah.
By the way, you were one of the best hosts for an event ever. I want to go back and watch you speak only for 5 minutes. This man can sit there and be like, everybody, you're going to listen to 13 speakers tonight. And on the way to there, I am going to entertain you in ways you never thought you could be entertained.
I ride Derek's coattail.
Hey, stop lying. Derek is better than you. I'm just joking. I didn't pick a winner. Man, I feel like you made that evening so much fun.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I think you brought people together on things they never thought they'd be brought together about.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever you get into a front of, and it's not always easy, but you just try to do your best. You know.
What's hard about it?
You just don't know I don't know the people sitting in there, so I don't know what's going to allow for them to click.
Yep.
And versus turn them off.
Yeah.
So there's some risk to that, right? And so some of it is going around talking to people before the actual event starts, just getting to know them, listen, kind of who they are, and then once you're there, based on the information that they give you an agenda, right? And then trying to make sure that you can kind of intertwine what you heard or point out people to begin to like, oh, he remembered me or noticed me. Then they be getting more comfortable with it. They're typically with a group of people around them. If you can make that one person comfortable and laugh, their friends are now going to be like, oh, I'm with them. And so it's just kind of hard. I think it's just kind of hard to be able to balance that. And I get, most people think that I immediately gravitate to get in front of people, which I don't.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I would say
an ambivert?
Probably, my wife gets mad at me because I always say that I'm an introvert, which I'm definitely not an introvert, but just for some reason, I'm a yellow.
Okay.
So if you get the color, I'm a yellow. So I'm always wanting to please people. Like I want everybody to have a yes when it comes to me. And so I think that's what probably makes it more challenging because it's not always a yes when you get in front of people, as you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you don't know if it's a yes or not until the end. You're like, was that a yes or what? So, but anyway, so yeah.
So I think that's interesting because we started out talking about like the lack of perfection in the things that you do. And then one of the biggest misnomers that people had is that somebody who's like really competent in getting on stage and makes it look good and make it look easy, like they're never anxious ever, right? You don't get nervous. You never have a moment where you doubt yourself. Do you ever doubt yourself, get nervous, or have anxiousness when you go out and speak in front of people?
Every time.
Every time.
Every time. Sit down with people doing a podcast.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. It's always in that way. And so, yeah, but most people wouldn't take that.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't know that I'm a yellow, in a sense, as far as the color wheel. That's kind of my personality, which lines up across any personality thing that I typically take.
Absolutely.
So, I'm just a people person. And part of that is just want people
to have a great time, to feel comfortable and all that kind of stuff. So here's one question I've got for you. You started this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm the interviewer now.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Eddie Coleman Show. I'm your host, John Bobb Semple. I'm sitting here with my buddy, Eddie Coleman. So you step out, you start the Eddie Coleman Show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I feel like you have like this entrepreneurial bug that you're like, you know what? I haven't done that.
Yeah,
well, why not?
Yeah.
Like, you can literally be like, welcome to the Russell Westbrook Show. Why not?
Yeah.
Or the Eddie Coleman Show. Why not?
Yeah.
So why not? So you have a podcast, you a part of a church plant in that community, you ran for office, you've done all these things. What is in you that makes you so fearless to jump out and say, hey, it might be messy, but I'm going to do it anyway?
Yeah. My dad, probably.
Okay.
So my father's an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And so he's always starting something. Like I think we may be driven a little bit different, but he's always starting something. Like he is a numbers guy, so there is this profit thing that he definitely wants to make. However, he's very much a people person as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, it's always like, man, will this bring people together? Like, is this the right idea for me? And if you ask Derek, I always say that by the time I'm 60, I want people to come to Guthrie because they want to learn from what we've done as far as connecting people and creating success. And so a lot of things that I do, I feel like is part of community. So we have churches in Guthrie, but I don't think that we have a North Church, meaning how we approach ministry. And so a part of that is like, what do we need in our community to make it successful? So I think local church is a big piece of that, the number one piece to a community, because I believe that people come to know Jesus Christ, that if they take the next step and if we do what we're supposed to as mature believers and disciple, then they begin to renew their mind, they're transformed, they know the good and perfect will of God, which is the key to all of success in life. Absolutely. We know those two things. Yep. And so local church first. But then there's just different things like how do we create opportunity for people to come together, because you never know if that right person is going to come together, see a house, bring their family in, and then they become an advocate for Guthrie and community.
That's what's up.
Which allows for another key element. So it's all kind of like, so the podcast helps John say, I'm going to come to Guthrie. Right now I got you in Guthrie. Yep. You walk through Boutique 206, so now you walk through one of our retail stores. Yep. Now if you leave out of here and buy something for your wife, now there's tax dollars, which without tax dollars, we're not able to do things like provide for a city manager that's not going to leave roads and things. So it's all very intentional. Absolutely. But people probably don't until now maybe. So typically the things that I think of, so mentoring is important, because now if you take an adult and mentor in that community, now the piece of them that's going to be valuable is, like, for me, my mentor is an important part of my life. So that's who I reach back out to. So now they stay connected to Guthrie, just in case they ever leave. They still have this one person who's probably going to be a lifer, because they're already an adult, they're already invested in the community. Now you're pointing to a young person, then they may come back, because they may be the doctor, the engineer, the Chesapeake, of Guthrie America. And so, because I just think Chesapeake's done so much for man, I can't.
Aubrey McClendon.
Yes, the stuff that he's done
for sure.
So
huge fan.
Yeah, so all those kind of things are the reason I started. And I don't know if it's fearless, but it's definitely messy, because oftentimes I'm not as smart as what I want to be when I start something. And so then you try to figure out who should be the right people around. And I like, once I have an idea, moving on. So how can I start an idea?
Be a catalyst and get going and move past it. Yeah, I think the reason I ask is I think for myself, I want to be a student of the work that you're doing, because I think the proof is there. You have this strong why. For myself, as a food banker, I think I have a good sense of my why. As a speaker, I have a good sense of my why. It's just this resident who just loves this place that's Oklahoma City. That I chose this place. I met my wife here. I went to college here. UCO is this important space and place for me. I'm just so I'm enamored by the fact that whenever you are setting out there, you seem very intentional, and you just crafted it out for us.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, guess what? If I'm gonna make this place better, this is what I've got to do to be a part of it. So, sorry to change your topic.
No.
I just thought that was fascinating.
No, we want to go to other communities. And hopefully, at some point, I want to go to other communities and
Do the same.
help do the same. So we were starting out in Oklahoma City doing an event called We Tell Stories, which is how we met. Most of the people that you probably say know me, it's probably because of We Tell Stories, which we did it for years.
That's so cool.
And so so it's at the end of because we can't, for me as a believer, and we preach this often, you can't take anything with you to heaven except relationships. And communities, relationships.
So true.
Like, how big can you make this community of people, and how many key people can you have in the community that also has the same why as like, how can we take all these people to heaven? And it's not so much about me preaching, but if you can serve those people, then at some point they message you, like, why do you do what you do? Then you can share Jesus Christ with people. And so, but at the same time, I love building a community, trying to at least, and so it's fun.
That's awesome.
Fun. And so now just the podcast.
That was the end of the Heady Coleman Show with your host, John Bobb Semple.
Now back to Heady. Back to Heady. So, man. So, when you think about the work you do, now you're in a place to where you're growing leaders, right? What are some things that you are sowing into people to allow for them to thrive as leaders? What are some key talking points you have with people to help them grow as leaders?
Absolutely, man. I think one of the most important things that everybody would say is just like learn to lead yourself. And so recognizing what are those self-disciplines that you've got to be able to maintain that really allow for your gifting and the knowledge that you have to be transferred to somebody else, and for them responsibility to be given to you to help shape, mold, and lead those folks. And so, I was talking to one of my team members just yesterday, and we were having a conversation about how does he step into those greater roles. And one of the biggest pieces was like, okay, so you know what your strengths are, fantastic. That might be a strengths finder. That's one of the ones we very recently went through.
Strengths finder?
Strengths finder.
So what was your top 5?
So my top 5 was woo, okay, winning others over.
I'm not a woo. Most people think I am.
You see, you know what? I believe that. Here's why. I think some of the best communicators aren't woo because they listen real well. So you are a good listener. I think that's impressive.
Yeah.
Your wife may feel. You think she would agree?
I don't know. We can ask.
We're gonna text her.
Yeah.
Live. It's gonna be great. So I think so. I have woo. Second is communication. The third is input. The fourth is ideation. And my fifth, input, ideation, woo, communication. I gotta think about it. What's my fifth one? This is that uncomfortable silence that's on the podcast.
Oh no, I like silence. I'm so okay with silence.
Okay.
Are you pulling out your phone? Cause
I got it in my.
I like that. I'm pulling out mine because I know that you probably like. What's yours?
Okay, so I was gonna ask you. You beat me to the punch. Strength.
We're both looking up. If you're watching on video, you're seeing this. We're trying to both find our top 5 strength finders.
You find it?
Yes, I found mine.
All right, I'm really close here.
You really?
Here we go. All right, let me pull it this way right here. All right, so I've got communication, I've got some woo, Then I've got strategic. Yeah.
Okay.
Strategic is my number 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's my top 5. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing strength finders. If you've never done strength finders,
it's worth it. Pay for it.
Worth it. It's a test.
Yep.
To kind of let you see what some of your strengths are.
That's right.
So I'm an includer. Number 1, includer.
I see it all.
Number
day.
2, positivity.
All day.
3, belief. 4, developer.
Yep.
5, connectedness. Which connectedness is not what I thought it was originally.
Isn't it different?
Yeah. So I thought connect is like connecting people.
Nope.
But it's not that at all. And so
it's deeper than that.
Yeah, it's deeper than that. And but yeah, I agree with all of those.
Includer, I can see it all over you. I mean, like I think the developer, like you're being a mentor for other people. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
So strengths finder. Know your strengths.
Yeah. Know your
strengths. The second thing is focus on creating value. I think that
man, I'm gonna write a book after this.
Hey, dude. Hey.
I wonder if I can write a book. I'm gonna give you credit. Okay. I'm gonna give you some of the credit.
So, man, you're my inspiration today to just talk. It's beautiful. So know your strengths. Create value.
Create value.
Number 3, look for opportunity. So looking for opportunity looks like, man, if I am feeling like I'm not getting an opportunity to be a leader, leadership is created by a gap, right? There's a problem to be solved. Craig Rochelle on his podcast recently talked about, he said that leadership is taking human energy and using it to create results or find solutions, right? Taking human energy to create results or find solutions. And it's just the fact that leadership begins when there's a gap, a problem, something that has to be solved. And that's why it's all about service in that sense. But then also I believe it shows up whenever there is, and that I would say that's the opportunity, competence and passion. So leadership begins at this point of an opportunity, a problem, a need for a solution, competence, what do I know, how do I know it, what are the things I have some knowledge about, and passion. And so I really think that is a proving ground for people who want to lead well. The other things that I think are essential, being a really effective listener, and desiring to as James says, be slow to speak and quick to listen.
Yeah, that's James in the Bible.
James in the Bible, excuse me. James, the dude who works at the donut shop. Brilliant cat, y'all. You get donuts and wisdom.
James, who works at Starbucks.
James, the favorite barista, also has great quotes. The book of James in the Bible. It's sad. We Christians, we do that.
Yeah.
We sit here and be like, well, of course we're in charge, therefore you should know all of the little funny ways we say stuff.
Yeah. We do that often.
It is sad. It's so sad. It's sad, but it's good because we get reminded in environments like this where we can't just talk to each other. So anyways.
Listening.
So really being an effective listener, I think, is huge. And then recognizing like where are the opportunities for me to pour into people, and realizing like, I think.
So as a leader, being able to be aware of pouring into people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think, so here's one of the things I had wrong for a really long time, right? I thought leadership was taking my skills and getting on a stage. I was knocked out when I realized leadership is actually you building a stage and putting somebody else up there.
Come on.
So it's not about you walking on that stage. It's about how can you see the gifts and the talents and the abilities in other people and saying, man, I've got an opportunity for you. I've got a problem you can solve. I've got a place for you to use those gifts. Will you hop on this stage that I've helped build? And so I think we oftentimes miss, like as a speaker doesn't mean I'm being a leader. As an Instagram influencer doesn't mean I'm truly walking in the road as a leader. I can do both. But then not just because I'm talking doesn't mean I'm leading somebody somewhere. Doesn't mean I'm serving them somewhere. I had somebody, I can't remember what it was. It was talking about one of the dangers as a speaker is for you to lean into charisma and not necessarily into the content of what you're saying. Why? Because I can get you excited about something. But if I don't give you a gift, a tool, a treasure for you to walk away and you to become the hero of the story, it's all about me. Charisma is more about you feeling better about yourself than you feeling great about me. I don't want you to just love who I am. I want you to love who you are that much better, feel that much more equipped, that much more able to go out and do and accomplish something. And so I think some of the most effective, I was talking to an intern, I had an intern last week, and he said, I said, do you ever want to be a leader? He said, no. I said, why is that? He said, I'm an introvert. He said, introverts aren't leaders. I said, hey, guess what? You got it all twisted up. You know why introverts are great leaders? I said, you probably think on things a lot. He said, yeah. He said, you probably think about things a lot more before you open your mouth. He said, yeah, I do. I said, don't you want somebody who's in charge to really think through the decisions that are being made? He said, well, yeah, I guess so. I said, you also probably listen to people very well. He said, yeah. I said, it's important for people who are leaders to be really good listeners so they can engage people and understand. He said, well, yeah, I do that too. I said, isn't it important also for you not to be defined by people's love of you? He said, you probably get energy by being by yourself sometimes. He said, yeah. I said, a leader sometimes got to make decisions that not everybody's going to love. An introvert can be a great leader if they have a good sense of who they are and the problem they're there to solve. They can act on behalf of others and it not be all about them. I said, now I'm an extrovert. Like Myers-Briggs, straight up 95% extrovert. But the thing I love is to be around an introvert who's a speaker or who is out in front, and they humbly step up and they say, as our CEO and founder Rodney Bivens would say, he said, John, I don't like to be out in front of everyone, but I do it because I know it's about making sure people eat. I do it because I want to serve. For me, I'm like, I do it, Rodney, because I've enjoyed talking to people since I was 3. And so I think that's as extroverts, we have all sorts of ways that we can be strong leaders, but I think for the introvert, there's so much more for them. There is a lot too that they may not automatically think about. And so I think those are some of the leadership lessons that I'm really excited about. I think
and you're pouring into your team. And,
exactly.
So there's a lot to that, right? And that doesn't happen overnight. When you think about these different things that you mentioned, how are you going about coaching or mentoring? What does that look like? That you've seen one of your people become this leader that you kind of just defined some of these qualities, stuff like that. What has like been a life cycle for some of that, and how do you continue to pour that into them? Is there some simple stuff that you do as an individual?
So consistency is so important. Being available is so important. I think humility is so important. I think one of the things that I've got so many different mentors over my life who poured this into me, and they just said, hey, John, it's not about you having all the skills, it's you being able to put together a team that together you have the skills needed to create good, right? So that means for me is helping them say, I want you to embrace all that you are. And so that cycle looks like monthly ones with ones, and saying, let's get together. It's your agenda, right? Growth is your responsibility. It's my responsibility to create an environment for you to grow, but only you can choose to grow. So that means creating that environment that says, this is your meeting. What do you want to talk about today? What's going on? What do you got on your plate? The worst meetings show up when I've got this long agenda. Now there's also, I'm the boss, right? I can have the agenda. I can say, come in my office, please. I'd like to talk to you about these things. But that one-with-one's got to be about that. Sometimes they'll do that well, sometimes they'll don't. But that's kind of things. Before I came today to talk about all these things, one of my phenomenal leaders, she and I have very different skill sets. We got together and it was just, hey, how can I create time and space? I don't want her to feel like I've got a different agenda. So one of the things that is really bad for me as a leader that I do sometimes is my phone is one of the most distracting, worst things in the world. It is the #1 message that says, you, right now, are not the most important thing to me. Why? Because I'm constantly there. So I think in that cycle, that means the attention is for them and for us to create a space for learning and for growth in that moment. Honesty. I've got to create a very honest thing. They got to know what to expect from me. So that means whenever we sit down and talk, if there's a problem, I've got to engage it. If there's something going well and I've got the opportunity to talk them up and remind them of what I see in them and use specific examples of ways I've seen them use their strength and good be created, I've got to be able to speak it out.
Yeah.
So for us, we meet every 2 weeks as a team, and we start meetings off with wins. For my previous teams, when it was a little bit
So
more,
wins, like somebody sharing.
wins.
Yeah. So I say share your 30 seconds of goodness. Like what is some? Yeah. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, in a office environment, I got to be a little bit more quiet. When I was in the volunteer center, we could get a little more loud. In the volunteer center, in that role, I actually cranked up some DJ Khaled. All I do is win, and I turn it off before all the bad word stuff. And so we would do that for the whole purpose of, if you shape a culture around honesty about your failures and loudly celebrating your wins, people feel that much more comfortable. Why? They know I'm for you, and they also know I'm not gonna lie to you, right?
Yeah.
So we gotta have that type of environment. So for our team, we start off with wins. I want to try to keep track of the things that I see them doing well.
Yeah.
And not small petty stuff where you just did your job, but no, where did you level up? Where did you really exceed? Why? Because people don't want to be pandered to. They will really want you to give them an opportunity to recognize something in them that makes them see that much more of themselves.
Yeah.
So if we're doing those types of things, I think in my team, we've got some weekly one-with-ones. I'm available whenever they have those challenges. I want to be responsive for them. We have those every 2 weeks. Let's get together as a team, talk about where we're going, what we want to do. We have those monthly one-with-ones that say, hey, this is your space. What are the anxious things that you got on your plate? What are the challenges you have with your teammates? Because we have some teammates, they leave folks. What are the things that you're thinking about when you're driving the car? What's the stuff that's, man, I don't want to talk about that. You know what? This is a space I want to talk about those things. Why? It's the things we don't talk about that oftentimes influence the things that we, unfortunately, either don't want to do or worried about doing.
Yeah.
So I want my team to feel like there's a conversation for that.
Yeah.
And then finally, I'd say, I like to have a conversation or an environment with my team where they want to help make me better. Yesterday, one of my teammates looked at me. I promise you, it was the hardest thing in the world. He said, John, I don't mind having a 2-hour meeting. He said, but tell me I'm showing up for a 2-hour meeting. I hate whenever we have a meeting that starts and it's supposed to be an hour and a half and you go 10 minutes past, 15 minutes past, 20 minutes past. He said, you know what that does? That makes me feel like you're valuing my time. I want my teammates to feel very comfortable telling me that message. Why? Because they're helping me be better.
Yeah.
And so I think that those are some of those types of things that can really help you pour into your team that well. The book 1 Minute Manager. As a matter of fact, the new 1 Minute Manager is the redo, and they upgraded in some ways.
Okay.
It really helped me understand the value of having a two-way street conversation. Not to where they're telling me how to do my job, but to where if they see blind spots that I have, I want to know what those blind spots are.
That's good. That's really good. Have you read the book Hero Maker?
I haven't.
Oh yeah. So Hero Maker is about essentially what we talked about earlier. It's about putting the people on the platform, you know, and letting them be the heroes. And so you are a person who are making the heroes and creating the leaders, and so it's a really good book. Have you ever read Ordering My Private World?
No.
About leading, so essentially about leading yourself, and so just really having some.
Oh, your private world.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's a really good book. So a couple of books, just thinking about what you've been talking about.
Absolutely.
A few books that jump out to me. So it's really good, man. So tell me about your wife, where y'all met.
Yeah.
We kind of going back now.
Okay.
But I wanted to make sure that we don't end or leave here without you acknowledging.
Oh, my bride.
Yes.
Man.
Yes.
I got a crush on her. So our fourth wedding anniversary is August 1st, so we're like 3 or 4 weeks away. She doesn't notice if she listens to this. It would be like an incentive, honey. Watch to the end. I reached out and hit up a creator for her gift. We'll just put it like that. I'm excited about it. August 1st, 4 years.
Okay.
We met through a mutual friend that was my neighbor and her best friend.
Okay.
It took me a year and a half to ask her out. Bunch of different reasons. Lots of stuff happened over that year and a half.
Okay.
And by the time I did, I had just given up the reins to make the decisions about my relationship life, my personal life to God. I said, God, I want you to bring a woman in my life that's the right person. I was about 28, 29 years old, and I finally said, I've done this my way for way too long. This is yours. And you know what? In 2 months, it was amazing how she just said, yeah, let's go hang out. Well, here's the funny part. I'm sitting here on the first date. We've told this story many times. I'm trying to give you the short version.
Yeah.
We're sitting on our first date, and it's going so well. We were at Urban Wine Works, which is no longer open anymore. It was in the Plaza District. And they had like bar area for wine and stuff, and cheeses and food, and then they had like a couch. I said, hey, let's go sit on the couch and let's continue this conversation. And so I didn't like make any moves or throw an arm around, nothing like that. I just said, so hey, tell me, what are we gonna do on our second date? She gives me this look. She's like, well, I don't know. And so I started answering. She later tells me she didn't realize this was a date. So what I would tell you is, guys who want to be intentional, ask people out on a date so everybody's aware of it.
Yeah.
And she said, well, how'd you think I was supposed to know? I said, I had on my date hat. She's like, what do you mean? I said, I had on like a fresh hat. It was like a fedora. It was dope. And she's like, how am I supposed to know that a hat means
Yes, that's the date.
Ladies, I'm sorry, but I'll say guys are stupid sometimes.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad I told her. She said, you seem really smooth. I said, honey, I peaked late. As a matter of fact, you got the best I ever had, and you took me off the market. And so everything that has looked smooth or easy ever since is no longer that. Is all for you. Nobody else has had it that good. So, and man, we live in Oklahoma City. She grew up in Bethany. I fell in love with her family.
Does her family still live in Bethany?
Yeah, actually her dad lives right here in Logan County in Crescent, Oklahoma.
Oh.
Crescent, America. So I get up there. I was there last week. He and I have become really close.
Yeah.
Her siblings live throughout North Oklahoma City and in Edmond. And so yeah, that's my bride.
That's cool.
She's going to nursing school this fall at OKC. Super proud of her.
Yeah.
We took one last big trip. It starts this Saturday. We're going to go to Denver. Excited about seeing that. It's a conference, and we're going to go a couple days early for that.
Food related conference?
Yeah, food bank related conference. So that's really exciting. She is. Whenever I become a full-time speaker one day in my future, I don't think I have a choice. She wants to be the manager. Why? Because she hears almost every speech several times before I go out there and give it, right?
Yeah.
And so when I'm working on my website, or I'm working on a talk, or I'm working on, hey, I don't know how to approach this group, or I'm stressing, I'm anxious, she's hearing all of it, and she's like, all right, last time you said this, you should consider this, or hey, you should wear this, or whatever else. And so she's like the manager that I never thought I knew I needed.
For sure.
So which means she is my ace in the hole. When it comes down to if I'm looking good out somewhere, it's because she probably picked it up.
That's cool. So you one day want to be full-time speaking?
Man, that's a dream one day. That's a dream. So I think in this season, I am all about building up my I've been with the food bank for 7 years, and I don't see an immediate end to that, but I know that whenever I get out there and I get to talk about my passion to help people reshape how they see themselves, and my passion to be able to encourage folks in that venue, in that environment, whether it be 6 or 600, when I step out and I'm talking to the kids at a local college or whatever else, and I'm bringing my heart to bear, and I'm trying to communicate in a way that they say, you know what, I'm the hero of my own story. And this guy just gave me a tool that's going to help me change something. And when people ask me why, I get to have that conversation and say, you know what, I love Jesus, that's who I am. I want to make this type of stuff accessible to everybody, but this is my why. I want you to find your why. I want you to literally give us the gift of yourself. Those are the types of things that there's nothing that replaces that. So,
that's good.
Yeah, man.
That's really good. Great. What's your website?
So, about to come out actually this month. I'm super excited. JohnBobbSemple.com.
Okay.
Without the hyphen.
Without the hyphen.
So, JohnBobbSemple.com. The podcast, IntentionalVolunteer.com. The food bank. We want to fight hunger. We need your help. RFPO.org. All those different things are things that I'm going to keep talking about for as long as I live.
That's good. Now, Derek sent me some questions.
Go for it.
I want to make sure that I at least touch on something.
Lightning round. Get out.
Cultural upbringing.
Yeah.
Is that a lightning round? Can you do
Oh
that?
yeah, for real. Let's do it. So my mother's